The sole meaning of life is to serve humanity. Leo Tolstoy. There's a question that doesn't show up when things are going well. It doesn't interrupt you when you're busy. It waits. It waits until you sit down, until the noise drops, until there's nothing left to distract you from yourself. And then it asks, very calmly, what is the point of all this? Not in a dramatic, suicidal way, more like an accounting problem. Like you're looking at your life and wondering if the math actually adds up. People like to pretend this question only hits people who failed, people who didn't make it, people who messed up early and never recovered. That idea is comforting because it suggests success is a vaccine against emptiness. Tolstoy ruins that illusion. Because Tolstoy asked that question after he won fame, money, legacy, a name that would survive centuries, and still nothing held. That should scare us more than it does. He didn't collapse because life treated him unfairly. He collapsed because life delivered exactly what it promised. And when he looked at it closely, it didn't justify itself. He had the books, the estate, the reputation, the family. And he kept asking a simple question no one around him wanted to hear. Okay, and then what? Death erases the scoreboard. Time deletes the applause. Even genius becomes trivia. And suddenly, all that striving starts to feel like a very elaborate way of killing time before dying. That logic is brutal. And worse, it's consistent. People love to frame Tolstoy's crisis as depression or burnout. Something chemical, something personal, something treatable. But that lets us avoid the real problem. Tolstoy wasn't weak. He was honest. If everything ends, if nothing lasts, if meaning depends on outcomes that decay, then why bother? That's not despair. That's reasoning taken seriously. Most of us don't refute nihilism. We just outrun it. We stay busy. We chase goals. We fill every quiet moment with noise. Tolstoy didn't do that. He followed the thought all the way to the end. And it almost killed him. So he did what intelligent people do. He thought harder. Pleasure didn't last. Art distracted but didn't answer. Science explained everything except why any of it mattered. Philosophy kept looping back on itself. Reason ate its own foundation. And that's the trap we don't talk about enough. We worship rationality, right up until it dismantles the very thing we're standing on. Tolstoy didn't lose faith in God first. He lost faith in reason as a savior. And then something humiliating happened. The answer didn't come from a book, or a philosopher, or a clever insight. It came from watching peasants. Poor, illiterate, exhausted. People whose lives, by every intellectual metric, should have been meaningless. But they weren't desperate. They worked. They suffered. They loved. They died. And somehow, they didn't feel cheated by existence. That's when Tolstoy realized something uncomfortable. Meaning isn't something you deduce. It's something you live. The peasants didn't need life to justify itself before committing to it. They didn't demand proof. They participated. And participation did what reason couldn't. This wasn't blind belief. It wasn't certainty. It wasn't doctrine. It was a willingness to live without guarantees. That idea is deeply offensive to the modern mind. Because we want meaning to be safe. We want it insured. We want a contract signed by the universe. Tolstoy realized he had been asking the wrong question. Not, why should I live? But am I willing to live without knowing why? And that's a much harder question. His answer wasn't poetic. It was inconvenient. Love, not as a feeling, but as self-deception. labor, real, physical, grounding work. Service, usefulness, instead of no destiny, no special role, no cosmic applause. Just stop making yourself the center of existence. And that hurts. Because ego loves abstraction. It hates responsibility. Love ties you to others. Labor ties you to reality. Service ties you to consequences. Meaning shows up exactly where ego loses control. And Tolstoy didn't live this cleanly. That's the part people like to skip. He preached simplicity while living comfortably. He wrote about humility while being unbearable at home. He knew the path and still resisted it. That's not hypocrisy. That's being human. Meaning wasn't something he achieved. It was something he kept betraying and returning to. And that feels honest. We like to think we've evolved past these problems. We haven't. We've just anesthetized them. Endless content. Endless productivity. Endless self-optimization. We're not fulfilled. We're distracted. Tolstoy didn't have algorithms protecting him from silence. So he had to face it. And maybe that's what we're avoiding. Tolstoy didn't prove life had meaning. He chose to live as if it did, knowing he might be wrong. That's the gamble. No certainty. No safety net. No philosophical insurance. Just the daily decision to love, to work, to serve, without knowing if it adds up in the end. Meaning isn't an answer. It's a stance. So let me ask you something uncomfortable. What do you use to avoid sitting with that question? Busyness. Achievement. Distraction. Certainty. If this reflection genuinely gave you something to think about, consider liking the video and subscribing. And if you're willing, I'm genuinely curious. What do you think gives life meaning, even when there's no proof?